Hello, I'm Maria Lamas. I'm a marketing specialist with Esri's Global Water Practice. Thank you for joining us today for how Opelika Utilities saved $300,000 with insights for ArcGIS. We're going to get started, but before we jump right in, I'd like to encourage you to post any questions you may have in the dialog box down below. At the end of the webinar, we'll have some time to answer questions, so stick around so we can get to your questions and answer them for you. We will be recording this webinar, and you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording once it's available. And so I'm so excited to have Alan Lee presenting today. Alan is the Capital Projects Manager at Opelika Utilities. He is also a strong advocate for GIS. Alan is very active in the water community and is always looking for ways to put GIS to work for Opelika Utilities. Today, Alan is going to share his story about how he became involved with Insights for ArcGIS and how Opelika used it to gain knowledge or insight into their meter data. Since Alan partnered with GIS Inc. on this work, we have Kevin Stewart and Steve Mulberry here joining the webinar. They will spend a few minutes sharing the solution that GIS Inc. has created to help other organizations take advantage of Insights for ArcGIS. In addition, my colleague David Watchell is also on the webinar from Esri. If you have any questions, he will be answering those. And now it's going to be a full hour of insight, so let's get started. Alan?
Thank you, Maria. Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Lee with Opelika Utilities. I've been working for Opelika Utilities for 27 years, and I enjoy GIS. I enjoy working with GIS Inc. and ESRI, so thanks for letting me host this webinar. All right, Steve. I want to give a little background of geographically where we are. We're in Opelika, Alabama, 90 miles southwest of Atlanta. We serve nearly 15,000 customers on the water side. We do not do sewer. We're a sister city to Auburn University. Auburn's about 6 miles away. Alabama is starting to be known as the Detroit of the South with our influx of auto manufacturers. We have Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes-Benz, and also in the aerospace industry, we have Airbus, and in the marine industry, we have a huge manufacturer in Mobile that's building warships for the Navy currently. In our city, we're known as an industrial city. We're a railroad town. We have two major railroads that come through our community. Some of our larger customers are Baxter, which makes dialyzers for kidney dialysis, which they're a large water user. We have Pharmavite that's in the over-the-counter vitamin and supplement manufacturing industry. And also we have Golden State Foods that recently went online with us. They're the largest pattier of hamburger meat and the sole source for McDonald's hamburgers. They use around, each of those industries use around 6 to 8 million gallons of water per day. All right. A little bit about our facility. This is our facility that we've been located in for about 4 years. As you can see, it's a very beautiful facility. It's a good place for everybody at Opelika Utilities to come to work. It's a very comfortable environment. This plant here is an 8 million gallon a day micro membrane filtration plant on a 10-acre site. This site also hosts our administrative offices and field operations office. So all of our employees are located on this one 10-acre site. This facility, 2 of our buildings in this facility are LEED Silver certified by the United States Green Building Council. We also have another water treatment plant on a separate source of surface water that produces around 18 million gallons of water per day. We are a regional water supplier. We supply everybody in the county at some rate of flow. Some of our customers do not or wholesale customers do not buy a lot of water from us, but some customers, we're their sole source of their drinking water. So it's very important for us to be able to run the plants even during a power outage. This plant here that you see on the screen has a 2.5 megawatt Caterpillar generator that produces 2.5 megawatts of power. So that can run our whole facility, so we can actually generate our own power during a storm or any kind of severe weather event and be able to serve our customers. All right. This map here is just a brief overview of our system. The mains you see on the map are all of our transmission mains. We define transmission mains as mains that are 10 inches and greater. And as the caption shows on the screen, we always look for leaky infrastructure, and the Alabama Department of Environmental Management defines unaccounted for water as anything leaks over 15% of what you produce to what you sell is considered excessive and needs to be looked at. Anything 10% or below is considered a tight system. Currently, we're at around 10% water loss. But we were noticing we had a little bit of a revenue problem. As I said, our water loss is 10%. We did notice we're having a few dead meters in the system, but the distribution report that shows that water loss really didn't reflect that. That's because that we bill on a minimum basis. Each residential customer, where they use a gallon of water or 4,000 gallons of water per month, is billed for a minimum of 4,000 gallons. And that minimum goes up as you increase the meter diameter. So a 2-inch meter would have a larger minimum. As you see here, we have Saugahatchee Water Treatment Plant. That's where I'm currently located. We're on a 400-acre reservoir that was built for us in 1946. And you see all of our elevated water tanks, and we are served on this map by I-85, Interstate I-85, that goes from Montgomery to all the way up the East Coast. So we have very good access to rail and industry, so that's a great thing. All right. As I was mentioning on the previous slide about dead meters, we have around 20,000 different services in the city. Some customers have multiple services where they have an irrigation meter or their domestic line or a commercial meter or an industrial meter to meet their needs. So our old process of identifying dead meters was a very painstaking process that was done by a person in the office. They would take over 20,000 meter readings and look at each meter reading line by line to see if that meter reading was in line with the previous month's readings, or low or high, that we may have to put a work order on to go verify that meter is operating properly or if it was read inaccurately. So the nice thing about that, we had a person in that position for 25 years doing that. She knew the system well, but there's still room for human error. So, but the bad thing is that person that's been here for 25 years just retired. So we had to train a new employee to do that job that has no experience in doing what we call exception reports to identify these dead meters. She has no baseline to go on except the previous month's readings. The elder employee, she knew a lot of the history. She had a lot of it in her head, and when she retired, we really didn't retain any of that knowledge transferred to the new employee. So it was kind of rough. So we had a lot of potential for human error and a lot of potential for maybe even estimating meter readings, which we do not allow, but Now, in my industry, it does happen. All right. So I had an idea of wanting to use GIS to help me automate the process and get something going that could run at night, provide the management and employees with a report in the morning. And we come up with this workflow model partnering with GIS Inc. This is the first attempt we used to automate the process of finding dead meters. The process is built on interfacing our billing system and CityWorks data by use of long and complicated scripts that I cannot perform in-house. Keep in mind, I'm a project manager. GIS is one sliver of what I do. I also manage capital projects. So, and with that being said, I'm not a script writer, and I really don't want to be. I want answers quickly as a manager. Don't get me wrong, this flow was successful, and we started seeing a fair amount of dead meters in the system. But the bad part about this script is we run in a virtual environment. All of our data is stored in Atlanta, Georgia, in the virtual environment. So when we would initiate this script at night on a schedule, this script would take 6 to 7 hours to run. So it was very slow, and we needed a way to make it faster, to give us answers quicker. We wanted answers within 15 minutes. And because we're a working utility, we provide water to people 7 days a week, 365 days a year. When people are home at Christmas time with their families, we're working to provide clean water to those customers. All right. Well, luckily, ESRI invited GIS Inc. and Opelika Utilities to Philadelphia to participate in a spatial BI forum. They asked us, would we be interested in coming, and we were all in. They told us ahead of time. We had a conference call a week before, and they were explaining to us what we needed to bring. They said, bring as much data as you possibly could. So we brought 10 years of billing records from our billing management system. We brought all of our CityWorks work orders, put them on a flash drive or any kind of external drive we could, and we were off to Philadelphia. So we met with the ESRI team in Philadelphia, and they gave us a warm reception and outlined this new product called Insights. They showed us the power of Insights in taking big data from multiple sources, Excel spreadsheets, billing data, work order data, any kind of data you could possibly conceive, and put into Insights for quick and graphic analysis and spatial analysis. After that 1 or 2 hours of instruction, we were off and running. We were taking our data that's ours and started making analysis. We gave recommendations to make the software better. I know ESRI is not in the water selling business. I am, so we interfaced well, and ESRI really took our comments to heart, and they have implemented it in their latest edition of Insights. So all this data we got to put out. It was great. All right. As you saw, so I showed you the workflow on the previous slides. That was all built by our GIS Inc. team that works with us. The nice thing about Insights and this workflow that you'll see in the demo coming up with Steve in a little bit, as you're building your aggregations and applying your filters into Insights, this workflow model right here is produced for you automatically. As you select what you want to filter or what you want to see, how you want to see it, this is built automatically. And the nice thing about this is you can save this and share this with your colleagues, which I thought was great. So we use this workflow model here and run some analysis for dead meters. All right, we're going to show you in this next slide our results. These results they blew our mind. Out of 15,000 meters, Insights told us 20,000 meters were dead. That's over 3,000 meters. It was shocking. Another thing it did, it told us which type of meters were failing. Like I said, with Insights interfacing with your GIS system, when you place a meter in the system in GIS and put its proper attributes in place by meter type, transmitter type, service line type, Insights lets you analyze all these different fields. So as you can see under meter manufacturers, it shows each type of meter that was dead. So one thing that tells you is, hey, do I have a battery going down on the meter that's not letting it transmit, giving us a 0 reading, or is there a problem with the transmitter? Another thing is this a warranty meter? So if it's still under manufacturer's warranty, by using the install date in the GIS feature class, we can query that as well. Then we can call our manufacturer to come replace the meter at their cost and not mine. Keep in mind, these AMR meters run anywhere from $200 to $400 a piece. So in addition to the revenue that we're going to gain, we're saving operational money on not having to pay for a meter that's still under warranty. So that was huge for us. Replacing, I would say that 10% of the meters may have been under warranty, so do the math and see that for yourselves. So in our analysis, continue please. In our analysis, if these meters that were getting a minimum bill had 4,000 gallons of usage, and we're seeing that these meters that had 4,000 gallons of usage are now getting 5,000 and 6,000 gallons of usage a month after we changed them out. That gained us an additional $25,000 a month in revenue. That's over $300,000 a year. And a little background on Opelika Utilities: we're an autonomous board, meaning we're self-governing. We do not receive any tax money from the city. So what the money we generate to operate off of comes from water passing through these meters. So we started a meter change out, and we're changing these meters out, and like I said, we're starting to give seeing some significant revenue gains, and I'm going to share those revenue gains, or what we call return on investments, here in a slide or two ahead. So all right, a little off the dead meter subject, we can also use Insights to see, using our CityWorks work order data, that where are the majority of the work orders going to. As you can see on the lower right portion of the screen, Everything's starting to make sense now. Meter not transmitting, replace register. So that's where the majority of work orders are taking place. A lot of the work orders on the left, relocate meter, repair fire hydrant, those do not happen very much, but the nice thing about those smaller work orders is they are repaired by a crew of 4 people with a piece of machinery. Meters not transmitting and replace register is done by 1 person, and that is an entirely labor intensive job because the tools he has to use to do this work are all hand tools. It's hands and knees work, digging in the mud, changing out these meters. And so what this screen can help you do is you can take insights into a board meeting to meet with your board of directors and show them, hey, I have one guy doing the majority of work orders in the system. It's budget time. We need to add another employee to help this guy out. We're killing this guy. So it's nice. It's nice for the management to see where these work orders are going. A lot of times in management, you're working on other things or future things. You're not working on what's current, and this gives you a quick and easy analysis of where these work orders are taking place. Additionally, if you can look in the lower left-hand corner, you can see that getting into the winter months, work orders go up or down. It depends. So the nice thing about it is you can track it by month, or you can track it by week. You can track it by what crew. So Insights gives you that almost instant analysis of this data. All right, Steve. At Opelika Utilities, we maintain a 20-year comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan includes all of our future main extensions, main replacements, pipe rehab, and we found out in Philadelphia that we can use this program, Insights, to determine pipe age, analyze leaks by area, leaks by type of pipe, leaks by pipe material, all in one easy program. I mean, this was great. And as you can see on the map here, it highlights them by color, by material type, or you could highlight them by age. It just depends on what filters you put in place. In my portion of this webinar in closing, Insights means to us gaining additional revenue, helping us plan, helping us take care of our employees. What does it mean gaining this revenue? $300,000 a year for us is 10 new vehicles per year. $300,000 to us is a small to medium pipe replacement or extension. $300,000 a year is a drone or two, or a very nice drone. We're looking to get into some drone to map to do some record drawing collection out in the field. Just $300,000 a year, or $25,000 a month. 1 month covers my enterprise license agreement with ESRI. This year in particular, in the past few years, our board of directors was gracious enough to give us a 3% raise. This year, the board agreed to pay us a 5% raise. So Insights helped us take care of our employees by increasing their income. So that helps us all. Another thing too is with the plan I showed you in the previous slides, is that facility you saw cost $35 million a month. We had $35 million. this $300,000 a year is helping to pay the debt service on the bond interest that we had to go and get in New York to help finance that project. So Insights is helping us in a number of different ways. Number one is revenue, but also we can use it to do a lot of analytics out in the system and be able to take those analytics and put it in layman's terms in a graph or a picture or a polygon to show us those areas. So this is how Insights has changed our way of thinking in the water field. And now we're going to show you some live demonstrations by GIS Inc.'s Steve Mulberry. Steve?
All right, thank you, Alan. Can you verify? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So as Alan mentioned, we both went up to Philadelphia to go through this workshop to learn a little more about Insights and how it can be used to help us better understand our information. And as Alan mentioned, we very quickly saw the power behind it. And so when we got back from this workshop, Alan instructed us to put in place Insights in Opelika's network so that they could use this on a regular basis. So what you're looking at here is Portal, and Portal is the interface to ArcGIS Enterprise, and running on the Opelika network, so that the good folks over there at Opelika can now access this solution and all the data behind it on a regular basis, and run these questions and look for trends whenever they need to. So Portal is the interface to all things enterprise, and this is how you would implement this technology. You could secure it behind your network. You could assign access based on users and groups, and give permission to those who need to run this tool and to access that data. And up here in the upper right-hand corner is where the solutions will become available to you as you implement like Insights for ArcGIS within the Portal environment. And so I'm just going to activate that product, and as I do so, it asks me, hey, you're logged into Portal. Do you want to give Insights permission to then view this information and data and run questions against it? And so although I've authenticated myself, it still asks me to make sure that I'm providing that, that level of access that I need to run the software against the data. And when you first come into Insights, you're presented with this opening page, which allows you to see the existing workbooks that people are working with and creating. You can start a new workbook and or contribute to one that's already there. And you'll notice the difference between the two workbooks that are here right now is one of them has this shared logo and icon here next to it. So as Alan mentioned, as you build these workbooks and add data to these workbooks and create your workflows, you can then share them out as web maps or story maps, or you can share the models that are generated behind the scenes for those workbooks out to somebody else, and they can plug in their own data, or maybe make a slight modification to that model and rerun it against the data that they want to access. So lots of flexibility in how you work with Insights and share the results out to those within your organization. And so think of Insights as workbooks, pages, and cards. So let's open up this workbook and look and see the results that we performed once we went back on site, the same sort of workflows that we did while we were at the workshop here. So you see this particular workbook, Opelika Insights, is the overarching workbook. And in here, we've got 4 pages. One deals with dead meters, work orders, requests, and then the water mains. And then inside of these pages are these cards, and these cards could represent spatial information, the mapping data. In this case, these are the service locations or the connections. We can have aggregated information data here. We can have lists of information, and we can have charts and pie charts and other types of representations of that. These are all based on cards. And these cards are linked together. So if I were to highlight a particular meter in the list here, it would update my map, it would update my charts. Anything else that I have loaded in this page are linked together. Same thing down in here. If I highlight one of these manufacturers, I can quickly find those within the map, and the same thing with the other data sets. All come together there nicely. A couple of things I want to point out here is the way you get started here is accessing data. Alan mentioned that Insights is built to receive data, and not just GIS data. We try not to say receive GIS data. Right? It's anything that is needed in order to answer the questions. Billing information, usage information, CityWorks work orders, GIS data, all that stuff comes to play when you're working with Insights. And the way you get started is by adding data. And I wanted to show you this dialog box real quick to give you a context of where this data comes from. So because it's part of the enterprise and part of the platform, I can get directly connected to all the content that I work with within my enterprise or my organization. So these are the list of all the services that are currently running out there. And I can click on one of those and I can see the data elements that are associated with that service, and I can add those into my page. I can also get connected directly to Excel spreadsheets or directly to a database or information coming from a database. So my billing system or my CRM system or whatever it might be that I need access to, I can go out and grab that data. And some of these data elements are going to be very large. Alan mentioned, 10 years worth of billing information. We had millions of records, and so Insights is built on the precedence of working with large data, big data elements. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But it's engineered so that it can look at large information and process that data very quickly, so that give you the results in that 10 to 15, 30 seconds time frame that Alan demanded, that he was able to look at this information. So once you get the data in, it's pretty simple. At that point, it's drag and drop information. It's creating relationships, and it's looking at this data the way you want to look at it. You don't need to be a GIS professional to start working with this data. It's clicking these cards and looking at different ways I can chart. So I can look at this information based on a map or a table or a histogram or a tree map. I can very quickly change the presence and the appearance of the information here as well. And as I start to perform these actions, Alan mentioned that it's recording my actions down here. So if I change over to my workflow, we can see that, yes, I added some data. I did a quick filter here, and I can highlight that filter, and I can dive into that and see what I performed here. So I filtered from a date range and a usage value. I aggregated some data here, and I can look at the way this data was aggregated. In this case, it was aggregated by facility ID, and then it was filtered again. And some places we performed styles and we created charts. And so all this information is being recorded for you behind the scenes. You don't have to work with this interface. But what's important about this is the ability that I can come in and I can override, I can change, I can share, and I can repoint this model to a different data set and rerun this again. So you do that by clicking on this drop-down box right here and saying, share this as a model, share this as a page. I can duplicate this, print this off. Lots of ways for me to manage this information here. Let's go back to the visualization page here, and let's run through some of these real quick. So we looked at dead meters, and Alan talked about that in depth. He also mentioned work orders. So here are those work orders being displayed inside a page within a tree view here. And if I highlight one of these sections here, like replacement register, again, because things are connected together, they're linked together between the elements in these cards, I can interact with those, and I can look at, where are these work orders that specify dead meter replacement or service line or main leakage. And I can then use this within real-time analysis or bring this information up on a web page in a board meeting or a planning meeting, and I can in real time show the results as we're working with the data. And in this case, it was just a very simple 2 pieces of information. Here, all my work orders with a spatial element to it, and then I derived that from a aggregation. So if you look at the workflow here, very simple: added data, I aggregated it, displayed it in a tree view. I styled it, displayed it in a map view. Very simple and quick ways of looking at the information there. You'll notice here too that there's sort of two different flavors here from an icon standpoint. So this is the real data that I'm accessing that I need to get the raw data from, and I can refresh that every time I want a new view of the data. Maybe I run this thing once a month or once a year or something. I refresh that data set. Anything else is something that I derive. So when I did that aggregation, it created this derived data for me. And so if I hit refresh, you'll see it'll go out and load that data and then automatically refresh anything else that's been aggregated from that source data set. So it keeps things up to date. So although Insights is a business intelligence system, in some cases it looks like a dashboard because it's keeping things real for me, right? And then let's go over here to the requests. Same thing here. We did the same kind of view, and then the water mains to kind of look at the aging and the years that they were installed and the material type. Again, I can interactively look at the map and the data and the temporal elements of that information. So let me just spend just a few seconds here and kind of show you how you would get started. So let's start a new page. And by virtue of clicking a new page, it's going to ask me to load some data. So I'm going to come out here and I'm just going to load the service connections for you real quick and kind of show you how this works. And so once I add that to the screen, it immediately recognizes that there's a spatial component to this data set. And so it added a card for me that I can quickly see and visualize the information. And I can highlight that card and I can change the presence of that and how it's being displayed and rendered. And I'm going to do a heat map here. And from this heat map now, I'm going to provide a filter. And there's two ways of filtering information out. I can filter in real time from the card by using the filter option here. And I can filter out by category. Let's do service type. And I get a list of all the service connections here. Maybe I'm looking for irrigation. Maybe I want to look at the summer usage or commercial usage, right? This is one way of filtering that out. And this is at a per card level. The other way is I can get right to the data itself. And I can go right to the source and filter out at this level and say, let's just show the commercial usage right now and apply that. And that updates my map and or any other card that is associated with this particular page at this moment in time. And so as I zoom in and zoom out, you can see those data pieces and elements then update for me automatically and show me those hot spots. So maybe I'm interested in servicing a tank in this area. I can do some pre-planning based on the usage at this current time. And I can continue to filter to this out or the season and temporal information. And as I do this, you'll notice that again, my workflow is being recorded for me. So Insights truly becomes this sort of drag and drop business interrogator tool that allows me to really get deep into my information and find that and looking for those anomalies that are taking place within my environment there. I'm going to back out of here real quick and go back to the slide because I want to highlight a couple things here. Where does Insights kind of fall into play here within the enterprise? So from an enterprise standpoint, starting at 10.5, there's some base components that comprise ArcGIS Enterprise. And that's the web adapter, the portal, server, and then the data store. And the data store becomes a very important component or building block to this to this platform, because this really allows us to extend the capabilities of things like Insights to be able to process large data very quickly. Okay, so how does a basic deployment of the base components of Enterprise look like? It's just like this. You have your web adapters communicating to your portal and your hosting server, and the data store is used to then help manage that self-service mapping that Insights bring together. And how does Insights look in this installation? Basically, Insights comes in place and it's a portal application. Insights manages its own services and its own schema behind the scenes. You don't have to do that for your day-to-day workflow. It does it all for you behind the scenes. You just access it via the portal. You authenticate yourself and you start bringing your data in, and the enterprise, the platform behind the scenes, manages that stuff for you and keeps things in check for you and helps optimize those data pieces so things run very fast, very smooth, and you can ask these these large questions of your data, and the system processes it very nicely for you. So that's sort of kind of what I wanted to highlight was insights, how to interact with it, how the user experience, how to load data, how to start your process, how to get the results off, and where does insights really fit in to the platform. I'm going to now turn the time over to Kevin to kind of talk through some options here. And before I do so, let me highlight that we didn't get a whole lot of time here to talk about insights. So Esri is providing some webinar series that will focus in on insights itself. So the first one is coming up on October 18th. You can go to this URL right here to register and learn a little bit more about insights. And I think there's a polling question, Maria, if we have time for that now.
Yes, thank you, Steve. So we'd like to hear your feedback, everyone. So if you can take a moment, I'm going to launch this poll here. The polling question is, do you believe your workflows for identifying dead meters could benefit using the process shown? So everything that Alan showed and Steve showed, we'd like to know your thoughts, if this is something you can benefit from. If you can select from one of the answers, yes, no, not sure, I need more information. So if you can just take a moment. Again, the question is, do you believe your workflows for identifying dead meters could benefit using the process shown? If you can select yes, no, not sure, I need more information. So majority of you are saying yes, and that's a good thing, right? So if you want to identify those dead meters and benefit all those benefits that Alan and his team are receiving there, it's pretty amazing. So thank you all for participating. I'm going to close the poll, and we're going to get back to Steve and Kevin.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Maria. This is Kevin Stewart with GIS Inc. And just wanted to point out a couple things here. As we've gone through the process with the Opelika utilities crew, a couple iterations now, you guys heard Alan talk about the scripting that was done in 2016 and really help them get into more of an automated way of doing something that they've done for over 25, 30 years, and that's dead meter identification. So it really helped out. And then in 2017, really evolving that with new tools available from Esri, Insights for ArcGIS, just really turn it into a truly interactive and easy to use process once you get the fundamentals down. And I think that's really the point, and that's kind of how we've structured a couple new service bundles. Insights, like any tool, any new tool that Esri rolls out, we think a lot of times it makes good sense to target a specific workflow or target a specific problem and go solve it. And in virtue by doing that, you're going to learn how to use and apply that tool to something else. And I think that's exactly what you saw in the presentation as Alan laid out their process. It started with dead meters. It's now turned into, where are they spending their time doing the work, and what's the pipe age of our system, and how's that relate to kind of our CIP process. And so we think the same thing, that this analysis that's done is something that that's repeatable, right, for every utility. Because I think that's one thing that I heard Alan say early on is, hey, it's a fact of life that all meters die sometime. And whether it's a battery issue or a manufacturer defect or what have you, there's several reasons why. And so it's an analysis that we think every utility can benefit from and be repeated. So a couple things that we've put together in terms of bundles, just to let everybody know, and we'll have contact information on the next slide. If you guys need help with this, we think it's a good way to dive in and start your usage with Insights. Option one would be a GIS Inc. environment, where basically you package up your data, we perform the analysis, and then deliver interactive reports. One thing to note on that, your data does not need to be in a GIS, as long as we can locate it, whether it's an XY for your meters or an address for your meters, the analysis can still be done, and we have a way to get to your usage history. Option two would be your environment, whether your environment's an on-premise environment already up in 10.5 or needs to be up in 10.5, or you have a cloud environment. We can do the same thing as that option one, just in your environment. The difference here would be you guys will get the skills and you'll be able to take the ball and run and start doing those additional analytical projects, just like Alan and team down at Opelika have done. So a couple options. We think it's such an important ROI. You heard Alan throw out those ROI statistics. Those are real numbers, and we think we can find those real numbers everywhere. So if you guys aren't inspired yet to jump in on the insights and do this, hopefully this webinar is something that gets you guys down the road. So that's all for me.
Great, thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Yeah, this is really exciting, right, for everyone. And so we do have some questions with some interest here as far as Alan. I'll get started with you early on, asking more on the GIS side. How long did the project take to go from paper to ArcGIS for your utility?
Oh, that's a very good question. I've been working on GIS for over 27 years. Ever since I come to Opelika Utilities, I've been involved with GIS. Back in the old days, ESRI really didn't have a good process for us for water. They eventually did. We built our original GIS system using a very customized program and using some base maps from the city that we received. Well, we went to update the base maps and we found out the base map had been stretched. So that ruined our GIS system there. We had to go back and modify everything. That's when we jumped on the ESRI train. We got into it with GIS Inc. They worked very closely with us, very detailed. Once we got to drawing the system, I took about a 3 or 4 year hiatus to build this plant that we're located at now. But after that, we built our GIS system in a little under a year. We collected all the data in the field ourselves, and then we come into the office and we were running about 3 edit sessions in the geo database. So when the map you saw today took us about a year or less to generate.
Wow, very good. Alrighty, and we have another question from the same attendee. He's interested in how ArcGIS plays a role in doing meter repairs.
Plays a very important role. Like I said, we use CityWorks. When we generate a work order, that work order is geolocated on a GIS map. For those who aren't familiar with CityWorks, CityWorks works with GIS. So in the CityWorks program, it actually shows the GIS assets in the program. So we will send that work order out to whoever it's assigned to. They receive an email notification, they click on it, and it takes them right to where they need to go. It even gives them directions to where they need to go repair that meter. Then they can complete the work order. Once they've changed out the meter, they can put the new meter information in, the serial number and the transmitter number, and transmit that wirelessly back to the office. So at the end of the day, the customer service representative doesn't have a stack of 20 to 25 orders that she has to put on at the end of the day. It's all done on the fly, live.
Very good, thank you. So again, is Opelika using an AMR/MI system currently?
We are. We've been in the AMR business close to 10 years now. And yes, it's great. We were able to we used to have 2 meter readers. We cut it down to 1 meter reader, and the meter reader that we cut got transferred into my department, and now he's my GIS technician in the field collecting my data. But getting back to the AMR question, AMR works great, but there is some pitfalls to AMR. Like Kevin said, it's battery life. You may have a faulty transmitter. So instead of a lot of meter reading now, it's a lot of meter maintenance.
Okay, very good. I have a question here from one of the attendees asking about the cost of insights for a size utility with maybe around 3,500 meters and one that has 80,000 meters? What are we looking at as far as price and the different size utilities? Is there one? Maybe Kevin or Dave, if you want to tackle that.
Sorry, you broke up. Maria, could you repeat that question?
Yes, sorry. As far as cost for the insights for ArcGIS, is there a price difference between the size of the utility? For example, here, if one has 3,500 meters or 80,000 meters, what are we looking at?
No, it's an annual subscription for the software. If you have an existing enterprise agreement or small utility enterprise agreement, you have entitlements to insights with those agreements. But if you don't have insights, then you can buy a annual subscription for the software. And as Steve mentioned, you have to have 10.5 installed to actually run insights. Insights will be out either later this year or early next year for ArcGIS Online. And again, that'll be an insight subscription for the software for that to work with ArcGIS Online.
Great, thanks, Dave. A couple more questions here. As far as insights, is there a way to perform the analysis without spatial data of the meters? Kevin or Steve?
Yes, actually, and yeah, that's one of the things that we kind of had. It was an aha moment for us. We're like, hey, actually, organizations would not need to be or have their meters in a GIS as long as we can locate them. There's got to be some sort of location field in there. So it's sometimes can be done by an address. Maybe there's an XY, but we've got to be able to locate it. And as long as we can locate it, then no, you do not need to have meters in GIS, but we got to have a location field in that data set, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. And we do have some questions as far as pre-processing of raw data. Does anything need to occur before or outside of the software of insights?
Yeah, let me take that question because I think that's an important one. So in the case of Opelika, we, as Alan mentioned, we just did a big data dump of everything, but we did go in and look at that data and kind of look at what pieces of information that we wanted to use. So there was a little bit of cleanup there, and retrospect, when we do this again, we would probably take a little more time up front to maybe get more familiar with the data, maybe remove some fields that we don't need, just to kind of help streamline that process. But the short answer is no. We just bring it all in and work with it. But probably to best practices is to kind of look at that, clean it up a little bit, and make sure that we're only bringing stuff in that that's going to help answer the question.
Great, thanks, Steve. And another question here is, is there a list of programs that Insights does or does not work with, other systems that it may or may not work with? Steve or Dave? So
that's interesting. So it doesn't really depend on other systems. It depends on the data. So if you can get your data out into an Excel spreadsheet, then it doesn't matter what you're using on the back end. We can bring that right in. But even from a database connection standpoint, you saw when I added some data there, we can connect to another data repository, and it's wide open, right? So all the standards, SQL Server, Oracle, other types of systems, become just part of the process. So we tend to look at ways of getting data out. So in the case of Opelika, we got all that data out into Excel spreadsheets and just brought them right in. But there's other ways.
And just to add what Steve said, so it connects to any relational database, as he mentioned, so Oracle, SQL Server, Postgres, as well as spreadsheet, CSV data. But there's also other systems that it connects to, like Hadoop, Small World, and others. So you can go to the website and it'll show you those additional, SAP HANA is another one, and additional types of systems that it'll connect directly to, other than bringing in spreadsheets or connecting to relational databases.
Very good. Thank you both. So there you have it. There's the questions for this webinar. So we really would like to thank you for joining us today. I would say, oh, we have one more question. Hold on one second. That just came in. It says, what would you say are the biggest benefits with Insights over Power BI? What would be the biggest difference in the benefits of Insights over Power BI?
Well, from my perspective, and others may have their own, but from my perspective, is that it's Insights is part of the enterprise platform. So it not only connects directly to your platform, your ArcGIS platform, but also connects to other systems, as Dave mentioned. And it has, right at its fingertips, it has all of the GIS capabilities, so all those functions and features that you're used to using inside of ArcMap and ArcGIS Server for doing these very high-end spatial analytical processes. It's just all part of the platform, so you can access those GIS functions and capabilities right inside of Insights, as well as what Insights brings to the table. And then quickly share that. So what's interesting is that, yeah, we probably could have done some of these things right in ArcMap, but surely not as easy, not as fast, and it's not as shareable as the desktop platform. So Insights brings that element to the table as well.
I can attest to that, Steve. Like I said, I'm not a script writer. With an hour or two of instruction from the team from ESRI in the BI form, we were off and running. A lot of the queries you do in ArcMap are a little bit more complicated. You need to know a little bit of the language, but this is drag and drop, like Steve said. It's very, very easy to use from an end user standpoint.
Great, thank you. Thank you both. Alrighty, so that is all the questions. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We would like to encourage you to join us at the upcoming webinar series if you want to dive more into Insights for ArcGIS. There's going to be three webinars in that series, one next month and two in November. So please do join us there. And before we close, I would like to encourage you all to fill out the survey. So once we close out the webinar for today, a survey will launch, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So again, thank you all for joining. Alan, everyone, thank you, and I hope you all have a great day.